Good morning. How are you today? I'm Connie Fuchsa with Foot Title Group, and welcome to Coffee with Connie on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Usually I try to do between 8 and 9 a.m. Today we have a staff function this morning that our team members are getting together at 8 o'clock, and we're going to be busy between 8 and 9, so I wanted to get to you a little bit early. And I wanted to say hi and give you some information this morning. We've been talking a lot about ownership and transferring ownership, and we've been talking about the ways that you can own a piece of property. We've been talking about estates. We've been talking about if you own a piece of property through a business, how those things are handled. And I've had a lot of comments and feedback about a lot of this stuff, and so I wanted to share some of that with you. So first, let me say hi, and thanks so much for tuning in. It is so important to me that you take the time to tune in, and not only to tune in, but also to check in. So if you are tuning in live, please check in and say hi and let me know that you're on. I really appreciate your time in the morning. I know how valuable it is trying to get your kids and your family out of the house and get yourself out of the house and get things where they need to be. And so I really appreciate it. And if you check in and say, hey, I'd really appreciate that. The other thing is if you're watching us on the replay, thanks also so much for your time. I know that not everybody has the time to check in the morning with Coffee with Connie, but tuning in at a later point with getting some information tells me that you guys are really getting some good information out of the broadcast that we do, and it lets me know that what kinds of things to talk about, and also lets me know that we are doing exactly what we plan on doing, which is getting the message out to you guys and trying to get you information that you need to make your home closing simple. So let me get started. As I said, I'm Connie Fuchsa with Foot Title Group, where we protect your home ownership, make your closing simple and easy to understand. Buying a new house is supposed to be fun and a great experience, and that is our passion, is to make sure that you know everything that's going on every step of the way. We keep you in the loop, you understand the process as it's going along, and that you and your home are protected once you walk away from closing with those keys. So good morning. Please check in and say hi if you're on, and thanks so much for your time. So what we're talking about today, we've been talking, like I said, a lot about ownership and different ways to own the title to your property, your real estate. We've also been talking about estates, which deals with ownership, and we've been talking about the ownership as far as business ownership. So what I want to talk about this morning for just a few minutes is a lot of questions I get are from people that want to change the names on the deed or the title to their property. And so what's involved with that. And I want to talk about why that might be important. So yesterday I was talking to a good friend that I have met through business, who is just a wonderful, hardworking lady, Karen, and her and her husband have a piece of property, and he is the only person on the title. And we talked about estates last week, and so she was asking me, well, you know, I know through our estate, my ownership is handled. If something was to happen to him, then, you know, the property goes to me. So the thing that I wanted to explain to you about that is, so they didn't add her to the deed because of some other things going on. And last week we talked a lot about tenancy and ownership and what it means when you own a piece of property with somebody else in the different ways that you can do it. Good morning, Mr. Jim. Haven't talked to you in a long time. Really good to see you on here. I hope you're doing well. So one of the things that her and I talked about yesterday is, let's say, for example, you own a piece of property. Good morning, Miss Sharon. Hope you're having a great morning. Let's say you own a piece of property and you get married subsequently to purchasing that property, and you don't add your spouse, but you handle that ownership through estate planning purposes with your spouse. So if something happens to you, you've done a will and your spouse is added on that will, so that if something happens to you, then that property goes to them. So what I want you to understand about that, good morning, my good friend Gerald. Hope you're having an awesome morning and getting ready for school. So what I want to explain to you about the whole estate process is, if you own a piece of property and you haven't added your spouse because you wanted to you didn't want to deal with the process. You thought it was really expensive and really cumbersome, and you knew that it was handled through your estate. Let me explain to you how the estate works. What happens is, if you own a piece of property and your spouse is not on that property and something happens to you, then an estate actually has to be opened. You have to hire an attorney, an estate attorney, and an attorney has to actually go through the court system, open an estate, pay the cost to do that. The court system, the Register of Wills, has to help you establish an executor of the estate, the listing of all of the assets. And I'm not saying that this normally wouldn't have to happen anyway with all of your assets, but if you own a piece of property with your spouse, if you are on the title to the property, good morning, my good friend Pam, how are you? If you own that piece of property with your spouse as tenants by the entirety, you're on that deed, then that piece of property doesn't have to go through the estate. You automatically own it. You owned it before that person passed, and when that person passed, you own 100% of it at the second that person passed. So when you're dealing with all the other emotional things and financial things and processes that you need to deal with when your spouse passes away, the home isn't one of them. So I encourage you, if you have gotten married or if circumstances have changed, that the ownership of your property is handled through that deed. Now, the one thing I will caution you about is sometimes people will ask me, well, maybe I want to add my child because then I want my child to get my property automatically. I don't want it to have to go through the estate either. Be careful with doing that if the child is not of majority age. And the reason for that is because if that child is not 18 or older, that child cannot act on its own behalf. And what that means is you can't refinance, do any additional financing. You can't do any changes to the ownership or the financing on that property without a court-ordered guardianship of that child. Just because you're the parent doesn't mean that you can act legally on its behalf when it comes to the real estate. So don't do that if you're dealing with a minor child. But when you're talking about spouses or people in your life that matter that you want to have to that add to that title, it makes it a little bit easier to add them to the title than it does necessarily to go through estate planning. I'm not saying estate planning isn't a good idea. What I am saying is let's talk about it. If you think that you have a question about that and maybe you don't have that in the right process that you want, then let's talk about it and make sure that you have it the way that you need it planned for your circumstances. Good morning, my good friend Wendy. I hope you're having an awesome morning as well. And you're welcome for the awesome information. That's what I like to do, is hopefully get you guys information that helps you out. So good morning, my friend Bridget. How are you today? So if you have a deed to a title to a property, you own it with someone else, or maybe someone that you love owns a piece of property and you're not on that title, let's talk about what some of the circumstances are that could affect you if something happens to one of you. Because you want to make it as simple of a process when you're dealing with all the other things that could be happening as possible. So maybe it's the right answer, maybe it's not, but it's not very expensive to add or change the ownership on the property, and it's something certainly we can help you with. So give me a buzz, send me a message, send me an email. We'd certainly like to help you answer any of those questions that you have. And so that's all I have for you guys this morning. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that title and ownership and why maybe we should be having some conversations about that to make sure that you have things in order the way that you want them so that you don't have to worry about them later. So I hope you're having an awesome morning. One thing I wanted to tell you guys, I told you last week that starting in October, we had some exciting news. And so I know I try to do live broadcasts with you guys at least twice a week. Sometimes I have some information and I pop in another time, like I did on Friday and sort of screwed everybody up. But usually I try to do Tuesday and Thursday mornings between 8 and 9 a.m. We are going to do an interactive, very exciting, I'm really super stoked about this, webinar. This is our super exciting news that I'd really like you all to put on your calendar. I know sometimes in the morning it's hard to get on the schedule, and so we're going to do an interactive webinar with you, the 5 most important things you need to know for closing, November 15th at 7 p.m. So after everybody's had dinner, after all of the kids are settled in and everybody's moved on to what they needed to do, gotten home, gotten everything settled, I'm super excited about this, and I want to be able to bring you guys information at times that you need it. So thanks for all of the thumbs up. I appreciate that. That I really appreciate all that love, and I can't wait to be able to get you guys more information. And we're so excited about this webinar because it's going to be an interactive setup where you guys can ask questions, you can talk to each other, we can bounce off ideas and information. But the most important thing I want to get you is the 5 most important things you need to know for closing, because my passion, as I've told you over and over, is to make the home closing process as simple as possible for you and to make sure you and your home are protected when you walk away with those keys and you're smiling and life is good. So please share that. Please share this broadcast. Please share any information that we put out there, because I can't get to the people that you know, and we may have some information that we're talking about that helps them out as well. So I hope you guys have an awesome day. We're going to be putting the graphic out for the webinar hopefully by the end of this week. So put it on your calendar, November 15th, 7 p.m. We're going to be doing, excuse me, the 5 most important things you need to know for your closing. So share, pass that out, and help me get the word out that we're going to be doing this really exciting interactive webinar on that evening. So hope you guys have an amazing day. I really appreciate you taking the time to tune in, and please share the video, and I look forward to talking to you again on Thursday morning between 8 and 9, and again at the webinar on the 15th. So hope you guys have a fantastic day. I look forward to talking to you again soon. I'm Connie Fuchsa with Foot Title Group, where we protect your home ownership.